Hi, I'm odeean, and today I'm having a look at MP-14 Alert by Takara Tomy. So this is the masterpiece version of G1 Red Alert. So straight away I'm going to say this is a very small box, just like with Sideswipe. This being based on the same mold, there wasn't anything unexpected there. Turning him around, we can see that just as with Sideswipe, Red Alert can fit into the back of Optimus Prime, but we'll get to that later. So here we have Alert out of his box, and I have to ask you to bear with me with this review because due to the whiteness of this figure, sometimes my lighting was a bit bright, so I've just toned it down a little bit. But anyway, he's a pretty nice looking car, and I mean, as before, we've got plastic wheels. I would have liked rubber, but they're plastic, we just have to deal with it. It rolls pretty well. This is a bumpy surface, but still rolls pretty well. No real clearance issues with this one. Just in comparison to Sideswipe, here we have the two together, and they both look pretty fantastic, but I must say I do prefer the red over the white. And I had some really good luck with my Sideswipe in that I had virtually no paint defects of any kind, and it was nice and tight and transformed properly. I heard a lot of people had problems, but I had virtually none with this figure. With Red Alert, the story isn't so perfect. So just at first glance, he does look pretty clean cut. No really obvious paint defects that stand out from far. But what I want to draw your attention to is this edge here. This sort of sums up the issues that I have with it. And I think that's showing up on camera. It's pretty fine, but along the edges of the panels on this toy, it's as if the paint has many little micro fractures in it, which it's ugly. It's a kind of feathered looking edge to the paint, which it didn't happen with Sideswipe. You can see with Sideswipe it was really clean and crisp, and I mean, who knows, maybe this is just luck. I lucked out with Sideswipe, not so much with Red Alert, but I found that to be kind of disappointing because it is a sort of premium figure. Other small defects include, if I turn it around to this side, there's a very fine tracery of black spray that's gone down and kind of in the wrong direction there. And again, it's so fine, it's hard to even show up here, but there are many examples of that very slight kind of sloppiness with the brush or the spray or whatever it is they apply it with. Same with the edge here around the windshield. It's a little bit of paint flicked here and there, so a little bit less attractive, but you know, it's within the realms of acceptable for me, so I'm not going to dwell on that too much, but I thought I'd just point out that this isn't necessarily going to be better than your Sideswipe. It's still a kind of luck proposition. So for a bit of scale, I showed it with Sideswipe. Here we have the Classics or Generations Red Alert. So they're pretty similar in size. Not exactly the same, obviously this is bigger, but it's doable to fit this in with Classics if that's the way you want to go. Equally, it sort of fits just as well with Masterpiece. So I haven't decided which I prefer, but you know, the figure is suitable for both. Next, I'll show you, what's this, PP-05M by iGear. So again, the scale of that is pretty good. These guys look pretty nice together, the two white Masterpiece Transformers. I do consider this a masterpiece. And I think a lot of people who have both will be including these on the same shelf for display because I think they really fit well together. Okay, I'll do some more size comparisons later when I've got this guy in robot mode. Before I get to the transformation, I wanted to show this light bar. So on our Sideswipe, there was a small hole at the top of the car where you could place the weapon. This light bar can accept a weapon as well, so there's nothing stopping you from mounting the rocket launcher on top of the light bar. But if you decide that you don't like the light bar, this light bar can just pop off and the little retractable cover is still there, although it is black, not white. But that can also directly take the weapon. So whether you want the light bar or not is purely an option, and I think it's kind of clever the way that they did that. leaving the options open like that was a good idea. As I mentioned earlier on, he also fits in the back of MP-10 or Hasbro's version, which this one is. So, I mean, the angle's a bit weird, so he bumps at the front, but if you can forgive that, there we go, fully inside. We'll actually put him in backwards so that he can burst out ready for action. On the other side, we're going to open the panel and pop out the other hand, like so. That gives us our arms. The next bit is a little bit difficult because the figure's tabbed together pretty solid in this region, but what we want to do is just want to untab this back bit like that to give us some clearance to work with. Now that it's untabbed, go ahead and just lift it a bit so you can pop out these feet which were tabbed on the inside. Okay, now this panel underneath is going to fold out like this. These panels here at the side need to rotate around 90 degrees on both sides, like so. The next thing is that this is going to move up like this, but at the same time the whole thing moves down. So looking at it from the other direction, what we have to be careful of is this little section. We want the black part to go underneath, but before we can move the black part underneath, we have to flip out a little internal panel like this. So you can watch, it'll all just slide together. And that's it. So it sort of just sits there. There's nothing that really firmly grips it, but it fits so neatly that it forms a strong kind of leg bond. So having a look at the other side again, move this piece down, fold out the little internal panel, rotate the whole thing around, fit it over the top, and there we have the other side. Uh-oh, hang on. Just got to get that one little bit in. That's it. Now underneath, the feet have a heel spur. That also needs to be folded out. Okay, bend the groin plate down, like so. You need to disengage this section. Fold the wheels further over like that as we bend the whole chest over, and then that clicks in like this. There's a little tab, this little red tab just tabs underneath the front of the bonnet into there, and the head folds up on top of itself to cover a blank spot. So this open skull sort of shuts like that. That was just so the bonnet could fit over it. Next we want to slide these shoulders up into their proper position, and then we can rotate the arms around. Doing the other side, shoulders up, rotate the arm around, move that into its proper position. We're almost done. The last part is this section here just has to bend over like this, kind of into that shape, so that when we fold this over, can all haven't made it right. Hang on. There, that's it. All tabbed together, nice and secure. So basically that's it. Let me pan my camera up. So here we've got Red Alert in robot mode, and he looks pretty awesome. So he's got single joints on his elbows. He's got swivel at the hand. His head goes around, up and down a little bit. Shoulders in and out. He's got swivel at the shoulder there. It's got a waist swivel. Ball-like action at the hip. 90 degrees at the knee. His feet have some travel, but it's not very much. He's decently, but not... he's got a decent degree of articulation. Not the best, but you know, it's pretty good. It's a good standard to have. Red Alert comes with a number of accessories. The first one is the rocket launcher that I showed earlier, and that's pretty cool. It can slot into the shoulders like this. Either one will work fine. Here, just let me pan up a little bit so you can have a better look at that. And I like the paint job on that. That's fairly good. Quite pleased with the way that turned out. The second accessory is this, Red Alert's pistol. So that has a little bar on the side which tabs in a very similar fashion to Masterpiece Rodimus or something like that. All the new Masterpieces seem to use this system. So if you can find the right spot, it will just sit in his hand like so. It's not a rock solid connection, but it's good enough for posing, and that's all most people are going to do with these figures anyway. The final accessory is this. This is great. In one of Red Alert's main episodes, he doesn't have that many episodes, but in one of his episodes he goes insane. Something's wrong with his mind. He's kind of having a burnout, and this is that mental burnout represented in plastic. So if we just pop it over like a pair of earmuffs onto Red Alert's head, bzzz, 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 bzzz. He can have like a paranoid schizoid attack or something. He can go totally mental as his brain burns out with these blue sparks. That's pretty awesome. I mean, if there weren't that many options, I guess, to use as accessories, because we don't get to see that much of Red Alert, but I think that's good either way. As with Sideswipe, Red Alert's two weapons can also join together like this, making a double weapon, rocket launcher, laser rifle, whatever you would call it, that can be mounted on his shoulder. Just a nice little touch there. There are some differences in this mould between Sideswipe and Red Alert. So you can see there are some fake wheels moulded on to the shoulders here, and they look pretty convincing. They're a tiny bit smaller than the actual wheels, like this one down here, but they look pretty much the same, and it's really nice to have something to differentiate the two toys. Let me just get Sideswipe so I can show you what I mean. So here we have Red Alert with his new added detail on the arm, and here we have Sideswipe. So I think that's mainly to make them stick each one more closely to their animation model from the G1 cartoon, because in the cartoon there was that difference. I don't know why that difference originally existed, but being Masterpiece, they've carried it through to the toy itself. The only other difference between the two figures are the head sculpt. So it is a very similar head sculpt, but not identical. You can see that Red Alert's had his little antenna gizmos here altered to be more like the animation model, whereas Sideswipe, he's thinner and more vertical. These are more chunky. The faces seem to be the same. It's hard to tell given that the colour of plastic around it is different, but I'm pretty sure that the faces are still the same. Now I'll give you some more scale comparisons with other figures. So here's our Red Alert, putting Sideswipe aside. Here is our iGears medical specialist all transformed up, and they go really well together. I love the way they scale together, and they even look good. They look like they're from the same place. Now we know that they're not, but the degree of workmanship on this is really fantastic. It stacks up perfectly with Masterpiece. Okay, putting him aside, the next one I'll show you is, here's something a bit more standard. So we've got our Air Raid from Fall of Cybertron. So he's a deluxe, current size deluxe. Obviously don't stack up that well in comparison to this masterpiece. They don't look very well together at all, considering they probably should be about the same height. Next I have the Classics Red Alert. So you can see he's quite a bit smaller, but it's doable. It's hard to say where this guy goes, because looking at these, you can see they're pretty similar in size, but he's just a tad too big. So if your Classics is leaning more towards Masterpiece these days, with the sheer volume of Masterpiece we've been getting, then you could call it Classics. But he doesn't really fit with these normal size deluxe figures. Finally, let's show him with MP-10. So I guess this is who he's meant to go with. I find it to be a tad too small, but I think I've been influenced too much by looking at the way other toys are scaled. Because if you think about it, going back to G1, the plane Transformers, the Decepticons, really should be much bigger than the ordinary Autobots, and Prime is about the same size as those Decepticons. So cartoon-wise, I think that's probably pretty accurate. So my final thoughts on this guy? Well, to start off with, he's a little bit pricey. It's going to run about $90 depending on where you get it from. But that's not too much of a big deal. It is kind of a definitive version of Red Alert, so once you've bought it, you don't need to buy another one. So that kind of compensates for the expensiveness of it. It is a little bit disappointing that we get these plastic wheels, given that third party seem to be able to make rubber wheels so well today. I'm surprised that Masterpiece have got rid of it. That is one of the negatives that I have with this. One of the other negatives that I have with it are some of this guy's joints, like especially this elbow, extremely floppy. This part in here on mine, extremely loose, and to the point where sometimes he has a little bit of a problem holding his own weapon. It's disappointing, especially considering that this mold only debuted a matter of months ago. It's not like we're into multiple redos of the same figure over and over again. It makes me shudder to think what the Tiger Tracks mold is going to look like when we finally get that. I don't think I'll be picking that one up. It's designed nicely, the accessories are nice, and given that it seems Masterpiece is heading the Classics route of giving us a whole lineup of 1984 characters, 85 characters, I think you'd end up kicking yourself in the end if you passed on an important figure like Red Alert. So that's it. That's my recommendation, is that you pick him up. This has been my video review for Masterpiece Alert. I'm Odeean. Thanks for watching.